Back. You'll have to pardon my raspy voice today. I've had a little bit of a rough week. And we're going to continue with this autumn scene. And last week we left off and we had to still finish up a few things and put in some shadows and stuff. So if you missed part one, the link is underneath this video here. And if it's your first time here, this is my channel, and every week I go live at 10 a.m. Toronto time on Wednesday mornings, and we do some painting together in watercolor. So let's take a look. This is where we left off in our scene last week, working from this reference right here, and I've put in some pretty pure colors where I have these yellow and red trees. I made sure that in order to keep them nice and bright, I did not have any color behind them. So I did not take the sky through there. I did not take the green through there. These colors, the red and the yellow, have both been painted on pure white paper. So I've got a couple of round brushes here. That's mainly what I'm going to be using now to sort of complete this picture. But we have a lot of, we've just got some plain color in here. We need to put in some texture and some shadows. This is my Kathleen Turner impression. All right, so keeping lots of fluids on hand just in case I get into the coughing again. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going around this time of year, and I didn't escape, so you'll have to tolerate me. Okay, so I'm going to come into this yellow tree here, and I want to start building up a little bit of the darker values because the light values simply will not read correctly unless you have some darks to compare them with. So I saw a comment earlier about how it's sort of mild and calm, but we're expecting some real wind today. We might lose all of these beautiful leaves today, but that's probably just as well because our leaves are going to be picked up very soon. So if they're not off the trees, it's a little hard to pick them up. So I'm going to go into some quinacridone gold, and I want to start building up a little bit of the shadows or the darker colors, the warmer tones within these trees. And so with the quinacridone gold, I'm just going to thin that down a little bit. And I'm going to dabble it in. Now you'll notice I haven't put in the tree trunk or anything yet. That's actually going to be one of the very last things I do because it is a darker color. So I'm holding my brush. I want you to notice that I'm holding my brush at the end, and I'm doing this so that I don't end up deliberately painting leaf by leaf. That ends up being a little bit contrived looking and unnatural. So I'm going to be using the side of my brush mostly for painting this, and just sort of skipping around the paper to create some of these golden tones that are in this yellow tree. And some of them come down right into this area here, and I will have to be a little bit more careful here. If you recall from part one, I did end up having to carefully paint around some of the areas. I don't want to necessarily fill it in. I still want to have a few lights sort of mingled in amongst these golds. I think that that's pretty important. And I could put this on and then revisit and put another layer on so that I have sort of two values of the gold, where it's doubled up, where I've got a layer on top of another layer. It will be a little bit darker. All right, so I'm painting. You'll notice I'm painting a lot kind of with the side of my brush, and I'm kind of like a skipping stone across my paper. I'm using a very light touch. I'm not deliberately painting any marks here. It's a little bit random. And I think when you're painting anything in nature, if you are a little bit looser in your technique, and this holding it on the end of the brush is one way to help sort of cure yourself of that habit of holding it too close, like a death grip on the ferrule kind of thing. So I want to cluster this. I don't want to make this look like polka dots. All right, that ends up looking really, really weird, right? You know, when you have a polka dot tree. So I want to overlap some of these strokes, then skip a little area. I'm not working in any formula, like where I'm kind of doing a row of branches or anything like that. I'm skipping around a little bit. Quinacridone Gold is a really nice warm kind of yellow, quite transparent. So a lot of that bright yellow is actually going to radiate through even these darker shaded values here. I'll take some rests from my talking just to keep myself from coughing and to spare you the noise. Now I am getting up a little bit on my tiptoe of my brush here to get into some of those little gaps. I don't want to paint my sky, obviously, so I want to try to slow it down a little bit around these areas here. I'm just going to set this here for now so I don't have to hold it, and I can zoom in on the area that I'm actually working on. That way you'll be able to see a little better what I'm doing. Okay. So I'm intentionally leaving sort of gaps of the yellow still showing. I'm also changing the angle that I'm holding my brush so that I don't get a like a wallpaper pattern type of thing, a repeat of the same stroke. Now up close, as you're looking at this, you're probably wincing a little bit and thinking, oh, I don't know, that doesn't look quite right. You know, the true test of a watercolor is when you step away and you're seeing the entirety of the picture, not the little bits on the leaves. We tend as watercolorists to sit a lot as we're painting, unlike other artists who paint at easels and things. So we tend to sit a lot, which means we don't get the opportunity to back away. So first of all, it's good for you physically to get up out of your chair once in a while. And standing back gives you sort of the broad view. And I think that that's really important when you are trying to compose and see the whole painting as an entirety. So there's a lot of these kind of golden leaves up into this nearly naked tree here. Let me move this down just a little bit. I'll try and keep an eye on the comments as we go along. If you have a question, it helps me a lot if you put it in capitals, because that way I can sort of spot it at a glance. You can also start your question with maybe 3 question marks just in front of what you're going to say. Maybe that would help too. Then I know that there's a question coming. Last week I uploaded the reference picture of this. I have, in today's video, I have uploaded a link to a little bit higher resolution. Somebody asked me if I had a higher resolution, and so I did find a higher resolution, and I can now share that with you. So that too is linked underneath this video. And I want to come in and I want to build up some of these layers here, but I can see that what's happening is I need to let layers dry in order for me to build up on that and continue the texture. Otherwise, what might be a little bit wet in an area will end up just the whole thing will get darker, right? Rather than segments of it, so that I'll end up with just light and dark. I want to have as many values as I can, so building up these transparent layers helps to build up some of those values. What is the colors of the red-orange leaves? The red-orange leaves, I believe, were, if I remember from last week, I believe that was either, I think it was permanent rose, but I muddied it just a little bit, just with the tiniest bit of some of my other paints that I had on my paper. I didn't want it to look like a pink tree. So I wanted to put in a little bit, I think I put in a little bit of this yellow, just a bit. And I believe a little bit of blue as well. Some of this blue from the sky, perhaps. Maybe somebody who remembers from last week can add that into the chat. But I believe that that's what I used for the red tree. We're talking about this red tree here, and I made it a bright red, but not a pink. So I didn't want the color to be so pure that it looked like unnatural. Okay, so a couple of other questions. Suzette says, I tried to paint a fall scene with reflection. I did not mask first because I was confused by the leaves combined with the water. Should I have masked the water like you did for the sky here? Not necessarily, and it would depend a lot on the motion of the water. If you're doing a reflection, if I were doing a reflection of this one here, if the water were in motion, which, if the river were in front, for example, this is a river, this is the Ottawa River, and if it happened to be in front, it would probably be flowing, right? So with water that's in motion, sorry, I hit my mic there. With water that's in motion, you're not going to see a mirror image. So you're not going to really even want to have all of those crisp lines. The only time you would have a reflection where, it's almost like a perfect mirror image is when the water is very, very still. Maybe first thing in the morning when the sun just first comes up, that type of thing. At this time of year, that might actually be a misty morning as well. But that's when you would see the mirror reflection of that, where you'd have the crisp edges. If there's any motion in the water, that's going to get disturbed. The faster the water is moving, you might not even see a reflection of the tree, other than maybe just a couple of hints of the color of the tree in the wet water. Like, so as you're applying your water for your river or your lake or whatever happens to be, you might just drop in some of the tree colors into that water to create the reflection. So how you go about doing your reflection really depends on the motion in the water. If you are zoomed in, like if your camera zooms in, you may not see as much reflection as you would if you were close to it as well. You'll notice that things on a far shore, like this one here, do not show a reflection because the angle that we're seeing, it's like a skipping stone, right? We're looking, the further the stone gets away, the more shallow the skip will be. So I don't know if that's a good analogy or not, but the reflection is too far away for us to see at a long distance. When we're up closer, we will see more of an entire reflection. And you'll only see an entire reflection of a tree if that tree is right at the shore. The further back from the shore the tree gets, you may only see the reflection of the top of the tree. So there's a number of variables there. That could almost be a demo for another day. Let me see. Margot's saying, should we have the first bright yellow alone where the sunlight hits the tree directly? There's actually two trees here. So this tree in the front, the tall one, is this one's behind that, and it will so I'm trying to get the gold colors in here. I'm going to come in and I'm going to do a little bit of texture on this one as well, but they're all going to get kind of mashed together, like this kind of thing, where one tree overlaps another. And because I'm using mostly transparent color, I can really do it almost in any order I want. I hope that answers your question, Margot. What color is the oranges you're painting on the right side tree? This color here is called quinacridone gold. I know some companies have now discontinued the color, and they're going with, I think it's called new gold or something like that. But it is a very transparent, warm yellow. Sort of almost a cross between a yellow and an orange, right? It's almost in between, but it's a very transparent, glowing kind of color. Now, that little bit of talking I did gave me an opportunity to allow some things to dry. Now I can come back in with a few. Not everywhere. I don't want to just repeat everything I've done, but I want to overlap a few of these to give yet another value. Suzette says, mine was a perfect mirror image. Really cool. I need to send this picture to you. Oh, sure. Okay, that would be great. By the way, in November, I haven't picked which week yet, maybe later in the month, I'm going to be doing another critique session. So if you are interested in participating in that, you can send your, I just realized my website isn't centered at the top there. There we go. Right at the top is my website. You can go to my email there. Send me your picture, but you need to also send me a description of what it is you would like me to critique about it. I'm not going to just arbitrarily pick something that I think is wrong with it. I'd like to know what you feel needs improvement if you're looking for critique. What you are hoping to improve, something that might be bothering you about your picture. That's where I feel I can do the best good as far as helping. I may also make some suggestions, but I'd like to hear from you first. So make sure you mention that. So I'm being sparse about adding some of these darks as I'm going along. And I don't mean darks in the sense that these are dark colors, but layering up some of my color is creating a few more values. You forgot it was Wednesday, Pam? I'm kind of thrown off on my days too. I woke up this morning not really, it didn't really hit me that it was Wednesday this morning either. I think once you get Halloween and Thanksgiving and all of these holidays tend to throw off our schedule. Plus, we've got the time change we just had last weekend. So that makes it a little confusing as well. All right, I think I've got just about enough here. I don't want to overwork this. Now, I do need a little bit of shading, texture, that sort of thing on this tree in the background. Now, this tree in the background is almost a different yellow, right? It's a cooler yellow. I've got a lot of warm yellow on this tree in front, but a lot of those cooler yellows are showing behind. So rather than using a nice warm color like the quinacridone gold, I'm going to take the areolin, which is what I used in the first place. I'm going to take that areolin and I'm going to add a little bit of, now if I add blue to it, it's going to turn green, right? So, but I want a cooler color. What I could do is take a little bit of a purple color. So I'm going to actually try a little bit of neutral tint. Okay, so neutral tint is a little bit of a, sorry, I'm not going to use, yeah, I'm going to try neutral tint here. So I'm going to try a little neutral tint in here, and I add that in, and it'll turn into a slightly greenish yellow. I hardly put any in. Let me bring this over to the main screen so you can see. So this is my areolin, nice bright color. And I'm going to see if I can show you how little I'm putting in. Hardly anything, right? It's going to green it, but only slightly, right? I still want it mostly yellow, because 2 layers of the same yellow will be darker than one, right? We put down a fairly transparent color. I'm only very slightly adjusting this. So I really don't want much in there. Just a whisper of the neutral tint. Okay, so I'm doing the same type of thing where I'm sort of dancing around with this yellowy green, very yellowy green. It's in behind this tree, so I'm going right into this tree as well. Don't need much. I mean, less is more. Okay, so I'm going to leave this aside for now. It needs branches and things, which is going to make it feel a lot more complete. But I'm going to go over to my left-hand side of my painting. And since I'm kind of working close, I will just slide my painting over, or slide my camera over, I guess. And we're going to work on this red tree here. So the red tree, as I said, was, let me bring this over to the main screen, the permanent rose. Now I took a little bit of my my yellow, my blue, but why don't I just take some of this blue, little yellow. If I mix a little bit of that in here, that's going to take that unnatural pink color out of there. So green and red being complementary colors that will darken and dull the color. So we need to have both. We need darker and duller. But I think I'm going to need a little more than that, so I'm going to mix a little more. Try to get on screen here. I'm holding it in my hand. did this the other day, and I promptly splashed on my brand new clean paper. But okay, so I've made some green. It's not overly crucial which green you use, but I'm going to mix here. See how that dulled that down? I'm rinsing in between. I'm rinsing my brush in between so that I don't dirty up my wells. Not really picking up more water. That rinsing you hear is just me trying to keep my colors cleaner. All right, so there we go. It's now by adding more green into this, I'm making this more of a dull burgundy kind of color. So we need this dull burgundy in order to show the, you can see this distinct shading at the bottom of the tree here. So I want to come in, and I don't need to cover all of it, as I said, but I will be covering a fair amount of it. And I want to get this darker color through here. I'm tiptoeing around a little bit of those greens and things. I do have greens in behind this tree in order to show that it's got like little windows in it where we can see through to the trees behind. But if you need something to look brighter, you need something beside it to compare it to. If you do everything bright, nothing looks, they all compete with each other. So I want to make sure that I'm kind of dulling down some of this, and having a bit of that color underneath is a good guideline for me to work from, but it's also helping me to build up and not have to fuss with this quite as much as I did on the first try. But it will harmonize the lighter leaves with the darker leaves. If you add too much green, this will get quite a dirty color. So if you don't want it too dirty looking, dull looking, it is dull, but if you've gone too far with the mixing in, you can just add more of the red. A little bit dry. So this brush I'm using here, it says it's a number 7, and I'm using a squirrel hair brush, but certainly a synthetic brush would be just fine. Now there's other trees with this same coloring through this area on the left that I didn't sponge those off very much. Last week, you might remember, if you missed last week, I used a sponge covered in masking fluid in order to preserve these lighter, different, like the brighter trees, the warmer colored trees. I didn't worry about it for the green trees because of the blue sky behind there's blue and green, so that doesn't interfere. But for it would interfere with these ones for sure. All right, so I need to start taking a close look here at where I need to stop adding in as much of this dark. Now there will be a little bit of this towards the top of the tree as well, because the leaves shade themselves, right? It's this bottom part of the tree. I think I mentioned there was a building behind me where I was taking this photograph, and the building was kind of shading the bottom portions of these trees. But look up here, you can see that the actual tree is shading itself. The branch in front is in the sun, and it casts a shadow behind. So this is all cast shadow that I'm adding in here. And I'm doing a lot of painting with the side of my brush. The only time I'm kind of getting up to the tiptoe is, if I'm really getting into a small, tiny spot. But otherwise, it's a lot of sort of almost dry brush kind of thing, where I'm just kind of skipping my brush across the surface of the paper. dry paper, of course. Okay, what color is the orange? Okay, I'm just checking the questions here. Looks like I'm caught up. Okay, so in we go. I'm just going to try to speed it up a little bit here. Now some of these lights between these trees, I may have to tone those down a little bit, but at least I've kept them separate color-wise, right? So I might have to adjust values, but at least I haven't overlapped my cooler greens with my warm reds, that sort of thing. I have managed to keep them separate, which of course is what we see in nature, right? You start to blend them together. I mean, trees actually aren't see-through, just where the pockets are. So you can't overlap the colors, same as the leaves can't overlap and block the tree behind, right? It's just going to close that off and turn it red. All right, so now we're just about where the point where I'm going to start just really barely putting a few little bits up in the upper part, but I want to keep the upper part mainly this color. I'm really looking more for just a bit of texture at this point. So I could take a little bit more red. I could make this actually a little bit brighter maybe. So I'm taking the same mixture, if you can see on my palette here, I'm taking the same mixture and I just added more red to it so it wouldn't be quite as dull at the top for the texture. But here we've got a little bit of the shadow from the actual tree, from the actual branches in front. It kind of sounds like I'm giving a lot of instruction. I'm really just giving you my thinking process as I'm going along. It's not so much instruction, it's just I want you to understand why I'm doing something. So I'm trying to relay why I'm doing something. All right. Just a little, my brush is almost out of paint here. So I'm just kind of scumbling it around, I guess, and that's just giving me a little dusting, I guess, of that color so that I can get the feeling of the texture without darkening everything, right? I just, there's a couple of darks in there, but I really want to keep this as light as possible. All right, but I'm going to continue over on the left side here where I want to do some of these other burgundy trees. So I'm going to take this darker color again. Let's make a little bit more of it. Okay, got a good green going there, and let's put some red in it. Fair bit of red in it. Till you're happy with that mixture. I'm filling up my brush here, and I'm going to do a little bit more of that sort of scumbling dry brush type of thing in through here. Actually, I think I'll go a little bit redder than that. And it's pretty sparse through here, this middle section. There's a lot of light showing through. I did put a lot of blue in through there, so I can leave a lot of that showing. And it starts getting, I can't even tell if it's the same tree. Doesn't matter. What I'm seeing is that this is getting a lot more golden and definitely yellow at the top where the light's really hitting it more directly. So I'm going to come in with some more golds and yellows into some of these areas. Now, because this is such a dark, a dark burgundy, it is going over the sky quite well. But I'm going to rinse my brush here, and I'm going to come back to some of my bright yellows, even a little bit of the Quin Gold mixed in maybe. And I'm going to do a little bit of this type of thing on the tops of these trees. I did sponge a little bit of white area here at the top, and those definitely do need filling in. Now that might be, I might have put a little bit too much there. So easy enough, just take some paper towel, take a clean side, just give it a little slight tap that picks up a lot of that extra color. Just a light touch and pull it off, and that'll do the trick. And I'm going to mix a little bit of that down into here as well. Now you see I put this on some of the blue, so it's not as bright, but I'm actually okay with it over here on the side. I'm really not too, these trees I'm putting kind of tucking in behind, those aren't the focal point, so they are not very important. They're the supporting actors to our stars. Let's put a little bit more of the burgundy in here. So I'm working on Arche 140 pound cold press, which has a nice surface texture and very nice for dry brushing, where you can just sort of skip over the natural bumps in the paper. All right, so this starts to merge into the other trees. You know, the whole can't see the forest for the trees kind of thing. They all kind of start blending together. Sorry, waking up. I'm just reading some of the comments here. Anyone getting side-by-side commercial? I don't know. I haven't watched. I'm actually, myself, I'm on a, I've paid for a premium account because the ads are driving me crazy. They're driving me crazy on other social media too. And I'm starting to discover something. You know how Instagram said hashtags don't work anymore? Well, I find that if I'm going through my feed on Instagram, that I can, it's ad after ad after ad, and it's really getting to me. Like I'd see like 10 ads before I see something art related. And the reason I'm on it is because I'm interested in art. So what I discovered is that if I want to see art, I will put in hashtag, I'll put in the search, I'll put in hashtag art or hashtag watercolor or hashtag autumn scenes in watercolor or anything like that. And when I click on where it says tag, you know, because it gives you the options. You want to look for an account with that name, or do you want to look for a tag with that name, or I forget what else the other options are. But I go to tags, and I can I can see it without any ads. So if you're on Instagram and you're really getting frustrated with seeing all the ads on Instagram, I know that that's how you can get rid of it. On YouTube, I don't know how to get rid of them, except unless you get a premium account, I guess. But for all transparency, YouTube does actually give me a little bit of payment for ads that they put on my channel. I guess once you're monetized, then you're monetized, and that's they give you the ads. I could turn that off, I suppose, but then they wouldn't send me anything. But if you could kind of ignore them, maybe. Not ignore them. I guess YouTube wouldn't like me saying that, but I'm going to just carry on. Maybe stay focused, right? All right. So I've put in lots of red. I put in lots of the burgundy. I'm going to mix up a bit of green and put in some more of my greens now. I'm just going to tuck those in the little spaces in between those colors. Not going to overlap them, because overlapping them will make them very just a dirty, dull color. So I'm going to be kind of tucking all of this in between as best I can. Of course, you're going to still have some of the sky peeking through, but I can touch them in these little gaps here. And there'll be a bunch of branches and tree trunks and things like that as well. So this all gets kind of filled in right to the ground here, it looks like. I'm going to mix a little red into that. And it's the same thing, right? If you want to darken your green, add a little bit of your red color into it. And I think, I know I mentioned this last week, I'm going to just say it again for emphasis, is that this is one way of painting autumn trees. It's certainly not the only way. I actually paint it in a lot of different ways. I think I've probably done some demonstrations on sort of small, quick and easy type of autumn scenes where we might work on a little bit on wet, versus what I'm doing right now, which is working on dry. So I'm going to tuck in a few more greens up into here. And even up at the top here, now there's, in this photograph, I don't know if you can see, there's a bit of a branch here. To me, that's a little bit distracting. I don't really need that in the corner of my painting, so I'm going to edit that one out. These green leaves, or green, I guess they're needles. This is a deciduous tree, or coniferous tree, I should say. And the green here you see at the top, that is from that tree. So I think I can leave that off. I don't think I actually need to have that. But I will darken up a few of the greens, especially down here towards the lower part of the tree. And the reason that I'm doing these ones down at the bottom of the tree and darkening what's in behind is because there's shadow on the green tree, not just the red tree, right? So wherever I've got the shadow of the red tree, I'm going to need to darken down these. These are becoming high contrast because of the amount of light that they are picking up, the contrast between the red and the green. And so I want to make sure that this doesn't look so contrasty down at the bottom. Little things that I have to kind of observe and pay attention to. So I'm going into some of these greens in the middle, and some of them might be blue, right? I might even have some of the blue from the river. I actually feel like I need to darken some of the blues over here because the river's changed color somehow between here and over here. So these are little corrections that are necessary as you're going along. But so much of it is about value. When I say value, I'm talking about how light or dark a color is. So likewise, as I'm darkening this, I'm trying to hide as much of the sort of white paper that might be around some of the where the green and the red meet. I want to hide some of that to reduce the contrast. There wouldn't be the light sparkles in there or anything like that. Okay, so I think that's coming along pretty good now. These are smaller, more subtle things than what we were doing last week, but that's because we're getting too closer to the end, right? We start getting a little bit more detail here and there. So all right, so hopefully that tree is beginning to look like it's got a band of light on it. I could certainly exaggerate that a little bit more if I wanted to. Let me just turn off this light and see if I can get that a little bit more the correct value on the screen is what I'm doing. But Suzette says, I love my YouTube Premium. They now offer a light version in many countries, including the US, that is about half the premium price and removes all the ads. A light? How does that work? That's pretty cool. Yeah, to me it was worth it just to not see any more ads. I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I actually really love some of the channels I follow. I don't know how many I follow, lots. And I don't get to watch everything, of course, but I want to make sure that if I don't want to miss some of my favorites, shall we say, there's like a little bell icon, and you can do that for mine too if you don't want to miss any of mine. It's a little bell icon that you can click on, and basically you'll get an email saying, so and so's going live right now, or so and so is has just uploaded a video. Now, I think you have to also have a premium account of your own. I've had a couple people say, well, I'm not seeing on YouTube, I'm not seeing the chat. Why am I not seeing the chat? And I found out that it's because you don't have a YouTube channel. So if you're watching and you're not seeing any of the chat comments or anything like that, and you'd like to participate, just get a YouTube channel. Now, it doesn't mean you have to upload YouTube videos or anything like that. It just means you've got an account. So then you can participate a little bit more. They also have things like membership. I don't know if that's something I'm going to do or not, but they have this membership thing, but then I'd have to make even more content. I'm struggling now, so I'm not sure if I could really produce a lot more at this time anyway. Maybe if I'm not teaching as many classes, I could start doing that. But for the time being, I think I've got enough on my plate. By the way, if anybody lives in Southern Ontario and you happen to be in the Oakville area, I currently have a solo show at the Oakville Art Society. That is on Bronte Road, Oakville, and it will be on until November 26th, 2025, if you're watching a replay of this. But it will be on until then. All right, so I've fiddled around enough with some of those textures. I think it's getting to the point now where I can start thinking about some of the tree trunks. Now, there were a few of the tree trunks which were lighter, So let me pull this over. You can see that there's a few lighter tree trunks tucked in here. Now they're lighter compared to the dark ones, okay? And even this tree trunk here on this tree, it's a little bit lighter than the deep green behind. So I would need to make a nice dark brown, basically. So to make that, I'm going to use burnt sienna. Burnt sienna. Here, I'll bring it to the main screen. It's a little easier to see when I'm actually doing a mix. Burnt sienna and cobalt blue give me a nice brown. If I add too much blue, like I kind of did right there, it becomes a little bit of a cool brown. But if I want it warmer, I just put in more burnt sienna. Now, a lot of the trees will be that cool brown. I find a lot of people tend to do their tree trunks just a little too chocolatey. So if you put a little bit more cool color into your brown, it will often look nicer. Now, for me to get that cool brown, I put in more blue. But for the lighter trees, I will dilute the cooler brown, not necessarily put in the chocolatey brown. None of the bases of these trees are in direct sun. As I said, the building is casting this shadow across the lower part of the trees here. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be even a building. It could be just sort of more trees making more shadow there. But I'm going to use a cooler brown, but I'm going to dilute it for some of the lighter trees. So I'm going to zoom out again, put down my brush, pick up another remote, and we'll zoom in. Oh, sorry, zoom out, I meant. And I will do a couple of lighter tree trunks, which I left gaps for those. So I rinsed my brush a little bit, so I've got lighter color here. And I want to fill in some of this. And now, obviously, I don't need to put in every tree trunk that I see in the reference picture. How important would that be, really? We need to have the idea of a tree trunk that's continuing. So anywhere there's a gap, I need to make sure I'm getting some of this color in there. I'm also looking at the size of the tree trunk, whether it's straight or whether it's curved. And in this case, it's pretty curved, which I think gives it more character. So I want to come up. I feel like I'm putting my arm in something here. Maybe I just dripped water. So I want to come up here to the top. And now, as I'm doing these branches for the tree, I'm skipping over where the foliage is because the foliage is blocking the tree trunk or the branch. So I'm stopping every time I get to some foliage there. And I'm still using this brush. Now, unlike what I was doing before and holding the brush really far back, I'm now moving right up closer to the ferrule and getting my brush a lot straighter. So I'm using just the tip. You could certainly switch to a rigger brush at this point if you felt like you really struggle a little bit with painting just the tip, because you do have to control the amount of pressure on your brush, of course, to get that even. But if you're pretty steady with your hand, go ahead and use the same brush. And I'll put in a few more branches here. Now I can actually make some of these branches a little darker, I think. They are pretty dark relative to a lot of other stuff, but the idea is that there's going to be a combination of light and dark. And I'm really going to try to make this feel like this is attached to something, not just randomly sticking out at the top of a tree. So I want to make sure that all these little gaps here have a hint of at least some of the tree, so that I can follow it down and understand that this is, oh, that's connected to this down here, right? Like I'll be able to figure that out if I close in some of those gaps. So I hope you understand what I mean there. It's important to make it sure look like it's connected to something. It would actually be okay if I went through some of these leaves as well, you know, because some of the greenery would be actually behind the tree as well. But a lot of it is in front, like the front side that I'm looking at. So there's a lot of these dark trees through here. I'm going to go to a deeper color here. I'm mixing a little less water into my mix, so I get a deeper, cooler tree trunk color. And now I'm going to come through here and I can start speeding up. Now that I sort of explained what I'm doing, I can speed this up a little bit, and hopefully you'll understand where I'm going with this. And there's a lot of small branches. I may come back later with a smaller brush in order to do some of the smaller branches, but I'm focusing more on the tree trunks right now. And there's large, there's small, there's branches of every shape and size, tree trunks. And they don't line up like soldiers, and they're definitely not spaced all the same. A drink. I'm going to have to call this chat Morning Cold Coffee with Shelley, because I always drink my coffee cold for some reason. Deliberately making some of these cockeyed or broken up in different directions, that sort of thing. And even through the middle of the tree here, I could start to hint at, okay, let's continue this, and let's go with a little naked area here, right? And maybe that's going to continue up here, and maybe I can show a little bit through there too. So you see, I can actually make that look like that's a continuation of this particular branch. It's not as random as you might think. So I want to explain that thinking process. All right. Look at bring my reference over a little closer. I am kind of just winging it here, just making it up at this point. But now, this main tree trunk is from the red tree, right? So the green, I'm not going to skip over the green because the green is behind this tree. So where I see green, I'm going to go through those little pockets and make sure I paint through that sort of thing. So wherever I see a green pocket, this tree trunk would come through. I have to think of what's behind, what's in front, all that sort of thing. All right, so you get the idea of that anyway. And now I'm going to come over to the one on the right-hand side and start starting to look better now already with just a few tree trunks in there. I'm going to put more in, of course, but I'm going to zoom over to the other side. Wrong way, sorry. There we go. Okay, so on the yellow tree, we have quite a lot of light showing on these. Now, we did mask those off, right? So I'm going to put this same sort of cool dark, and I want to be carefully run this along a thin line on the right-hand side of those sunlit branches at the top of the tree. Again, I am still skipping over a few of the areas where there's leaves in front, but this is going to really make it feel like those branches are getting hit with the light, with the sun, because you only get shadows like this when you get the sun hitting it directly. Gosh, I was taking pictures of the sunset last night. It was spectacular. One thing I never get tired of is sunsets. I've seen thousands of them in my life, and they never get old for me. Let me see here. Okay, so maybe there'll be a few branches that do this kind of thing. Crisscross, right? See how my upper arm is making a shadow in front of the other arm? So I might see, for example, I might see a bit of a shadow here, or I might see a bit of a shadow somewhere else where there's a bit of a crisscross, right? And there's not a lot of it, but you know, there might be a little bit here and there. Okay, just a little bit of a hint of one branch crossing over another, or some of the foliage, you know, some of these leaves maybe making some shadows here down there. But I wanted to really emphasize how light the sun is on those limbs that are at the top. This is all part of, I mean, the bright color indicates the tree, but you don't discount the importance of the branches as well. All right, so let me put in a few more little branches through here. Okay, so you can see the continuation of my tree trunk, or my tree branches coming down here. Especially through the lighter yellow, because the lighter yellow is the tree behind, right? So in those lighter yellow areas, I can create a little bit more of the tree trunk here. And I may even see some of the branching off of other limbs from those little holes in the tree, which actually you do see quite a lot of that anyway. So I hope you're sort of getting the gist of my thinking anyway. Sorry if it seems like I'm babbling a lot, but I think knowing the reason why is important. As we don't always have somebody saying, put the color here and put the color there. Use this kind of a stroke. I think in knowing why gives you the freedom to take a scene of your own and build it from there. Now I'm getting down into more the main part of the tree trunk. You know, as the tree trunk comes down, it gets darker, it gets wider is what I meant to say. So I'm going to dilute some of this color, and I'm going to put in the wider parts of the tree. So as we get into some of these areas, and some of this is actually getting quite sparse near the bottom of this tree. So I'm going to show a fair bit of the tree trunk here. All right, so let's come right down here, and you can follow the tree trunk. And I think that that's often a neglected part of some of the paintings that I've seen, is that people aren't really thinking logically when they're putting in random branches or something, that these do all connect, especially larger tree trunks like I'm doing right now. So I've diluted this a little bit, as you can tell, and it looked really dark up here, but now I'm painting down at the bottom on the white of the paper. It's actually looking light, probably too light, and I am going to have to come in and add more darks to this, but this will show the lighter part of the tree. And I don't want to have the tree just one color if I'm showing that much of the tree trunk, because it's a round or cylindrical object, and I need to show the roundness of it. So I need to have some light and some dark in there in order to show that. All right, let me see. Now, this is looking like it's more shadow because of the lightness of the tree trunk, but I'm just going to continue adding a few more sort of sparse branches here. The brush is a little bit full. Trying to get some of the smaller branches here. And to show that a lot of the leaves have fallen off, you start to see more of the branches. So you actually have to show the branches. So I'm just going to continue on. Pardon me. Now some will be behind. So I could take even this little one that I'm doing right here. Let me zoom in a little bit. So for the most part, you can see that I'm skipping over the, let me zoom out a little bit. I'm skipping over a lot of the golden areas, but I can go through some too, because some of them will look like they're some of the branches will look like they're maybe coming forward or something like that. And then the golden color might actually be behind or in front of the tree trunk. I'm going to take more of this color right here, and I'm going to darken up. This is the dark brown that I mixed up, the cool dark. And I'm going to start adding more shadow onto the tree trunk. Just kind of skim it with my brush with hardly any color, and it gives me the hint of a little texture on the tree. So I'm going to just keep building out a little bit here. Kind of more naked branches kind of thing. And one thing about branches, a lot of people forget, is how much they crisscross, right? Like I could have it completely crisscross here, for example. that's the way trees are. If you make them all look like they go left and they go right, it looks like your tree's flat. You know, they come forward, the branches go in all different directions. So don't forget about that. I think I'm going to connect that. There we go. Okay, so hopefully, let me zoom out a little bit so that you can see the top of the tree as well. So you can see how the sun is hitting the top of those, not just the leaves, but the branches, the naked branches as well. All right, so now I've neglected an area here, which I think I'm going to take a few minutes just to do here, is this this area that I left on the grass where there's a lot of fallen leaves. I need to come in with that quinacridone gold and start building some of that up. So I'm going to just sort of dabble. Now this is going to be horizontal strokes because these leaves have fallen on the ground. These are still on the trees, right? They're like big puff balls of leaves. But the ones on the ground, they're all sitting on a flat surface. So I need to make sure that I'm maintaining this horizontal effect in order for this to look correct. So I'm still holding my brush on the end, but I'm going to go in a horizontal direction so that this will look like these leaves are flat. So the direction of your strokes will make a difference. I did that actually with the green as well, where I had some of the grass showing through some of the fallen leaves. And so it's almost a broken edge kind of stroke. So I'm really using the side of the brush, not the tip of the brush. But I am making sure I'm using a horizontal direction. And if I let this dry, I can come in and add yet another value just by doing a little bit more of that. I can come in with more of the aureolin or aurelian if I wish. Now my aurelian is Da Vinci is the brand that I am using, and it's actually a mixture. It's not the original aurelian. But it's a nice bright yellow, and even though it's a mixture, I find it's actually pretty good for mixing with other colors. Okay, so I'll take some of my aurelian, however you want to say it. I may have to, I'm just going to quickly dry that so that the colors don't mix too much. I want to have the texture of the leaves that are fallen on the ground, and I want that to look a little bit rough. All right, and so when I say rough, I'm talking about the edge of the paint strokes. So some of these fallen leaves may not have turned brown yet. They might be still a little brighter yellow, newly fallen leaves. So you want to have a combination, but overall the leaves on the ground are typically more brownish than what's on the tree because, well, we all know that they go brown. Okay, I don't want to put too much bright yellow there. I still want to have just the lighter color in there. And I might add some more of the quinacridone gold as well. But let's, this is probably a good point in the painting to zoom out and get the overall look again. So let me zoom out and see what we have. Oop, a little too much. There we go. Okay, so we're getting the overall effect here. Am I getting everything that I want? I'm feeling like these trees in the back here could be a little bit darker. I'd like to see maybe some more breaking up of some of these areas. Like this part of this tree looks a little too solid to me. So I'm going to take some more green. Let's take my green here with my yellow, my aureolin, my cobalt blue. That even had a little bit of red in it, if I recall correctly. But I want to get it a little bit darker. Let's put a little more red in it. I'm just stealing from other areas on my palette where I've got a little bit of red kind of thing. And I want to come in and just add in a few more little peak holes. And the reason I want to do that is because I feel like parts of that tree need to be a little bit more sparse, especially sort of near the bottom here. I find like I've got just a few edges here that just feel like they need to be broken up a bit. So I'm just going to touch along some of this. And it gives you also, by breaking up that space, it makes these not feel like big leaves, right? Like giant leaves. It will feel a little bit more sort of delicate, where you have just little bits of those showing through. Now I'm going to continue some of this down into my greenery so that it all connects together properly. I'm going to carry some of that down and just sort of scumble that in, give a little bit of extra texture there. I don't want to put too much detail in that area though, because that's the guys hiding behind the backup singers. All right, so you feel like, okay, more of the leaves have fallen there, or that part of the tree has a little bit more laciness to it and that sort of thing. So things, the more sort of attention to those little windows in your trees that you give, the higher degree of realism that you'll achieve, and the type of texture that you're looking for. And so now I need to think about things like, and I'm looking at my reference here, I'm feeling like my grass is looking a little too sunny. I'd almost like to dull that down a little bit, because I want the light, this passage of light through the middle of the scene, to be the main thing. And I feel like this is just a little too bright. So this is where that get up out of your chair, stand back and look at the overall picture. Now I almost get the same effect because I'm looking at the screen. I'm looking at what you're looking at. You can see the whole image. So I'm able to do that. Sometimes even if you just take your phone and take a picture of it, it gives you more that sort of zoomed out look. So I'm going to take and dull down some of this green here. I'm going to use my bigger brush for this because that's a big area. I did create, if you remember last week, I created a gradation. I removed the path. I didn't feel like the path or the stumps and the, I guess that's a fire pit there. I didn't really want to add that in. It didn't really, it was a nice little area and everything, but I didn't really feel like it was contributing a lot to the composition. What I want the viewer to see is this beautiful color. So I didn't feel it was necessary. So I'm going to mix more of my green. Right? Now that's almost too much of a pretty yellow green. And I want to dull this down a little bit. So I'm going to take a bit of that quinacridone gold and get that mixed in there. And this is going to turn a lot more olive, which will feel more like an autumn grass, where things are beginning to die down. But I really want to make it look like it's more in shadow. So a little bit of that quinacridone gold mixed into there, kind of browns it up a little bit. And so that's what I'm looking for here. Now, this is a big area I've got to cover, so I better mix more paint, because I think I mentioned this last time, I'm notorious for not mixing enough color. So let's bring this over. I'll let you see what I'm doing. So my Areolan mixture, go into my cobalt blue, gives me a nice bright shiny green. But if I start putting quinacridone gold into that, it starts to really dull it down. Now, if I wanted to dull it down further, I mean, I could grab a little bit of this burnt sienna even, and that would dull this down. I'm not looking for dark and dull. I just want to take the punch out of that green so that it's not so bright. All right, so I'm going to dilute this. I already have green on the paper, so I don't need a really strong color. I just need a weaker color that's going to dull down what I have. So I'm going to add more water to this so that I can have a nice wet brush. A wet brush, if you'll recall from last week, when you work on dry paper, a wet brush is your biggest friend. It will allow you to apply lots of wet color and not have a lot of brush marks in there. So that's what I'm looking for here. So I'm just gonna move the mic out of the way for a minute because I need to work in that area and it's kind of in my way. All right, so you can see that that's more of an olive color. And I'm going to go back to my palette frequently in order to apply this. In fact, it's a shorter distance if I do this. So I'll just do that. So I'm going to put down lots and lots of paint here. I don't want to skimp on how much wet color I'm putting on. And I'm going to go right to the bottom because that's going to be all connected, of course. But you can see how much duller that now becomes. So that helps with the feeling of it being in shadow. Now you notice I didn't use any gray, right? I wanted to stay away from gray because gray in shadows really sucks the life out of things. So I'm trying to incorporate as much sort of actual color, not gray, in there as I can. Splashing myself here. It's like very awkward the way I'm holding this, so I'm going to set this down now. And as I get over here, this is where I'm going to sort of stop and skip around some of those golds and things. Keep the brush full. You'll get rid of all your brush marks if you keep your brush full. I can bring this back now so you can hear me better. Not that you want to hear me better today. Sorry, I know my voice is pretty coarse today. But I'm just going to go all the way across here. Good enough. Okay, so now I've dulled that down. These trees are shining more, right? Like it's giving more credit to the brighter areas. And if I want to emphasize shadows even further, I mean, I'm certainly welcome to do that. Just looking at the screen here, and it's actually a pretty good representation of what I've got. So Now, I'm kind of jumping around from one place to another. Things have to dry in between and all of that sort of thing. But I'm going to take, in the meantime, I'm going to just take this duller blue from my water. Right? See, it's kind of a blue-gray in the water. And I'm going to sort of continue that over here because I kind of neglected to make that as dark. So I'm going to take some of this muddy mess here, mix it into my blue to get a duller gray. And I'm going to continue this through. And I will have to paint around some stuff. I think maybe a little dark. What do you think? If it's a little dark, I'll just blot with my paper towel gently. Lift a little bit of that color, and then I think that's getting to be similar value. I'm poking in and around my greens, my reds, just those little gaps in there. I'm looking back here frequently because I want to make sure I don't go higher or lower than my far shore of the river. Gonna have to pull that tree down a little bit more. It's kind of floating in the air. It's got a little gap underneath it. So, things like that I'll have to go back and fiddle with. Just do a couple of minor corrections. All right. So all these little holes, these little windows, I'm just going to fill those in. And if I'm filling in the river there, I'm also going to add in a little bit of a hint of this shore as well. That shore was quite yellow. Better rinse out my brush a bit. Okay, so it was quite yellow on that other shore. So this little window through here, I'm going to put kind of a brighter color to match the brighter shore on the distance. And I'm adding a bit of red to it because it looks to me like it could be a little bit more orange than I have. So I'm going to just orange this up a bit. There, just showing a little bit of that, a little whisper. You hardly see any little gaps there where you can see the other shore, but I wanted to put a little bit of that through so that you could get the sense of it going all the way through, right? I didn't want it to be confusing. So hopefully that looks all connected now. And I'm going to darken a lot more of what's in here, but of course I'm going to have to dry that first. Might as well dry some of the grass while I'm at it, so I don't get my arm in wet paint. That should be plenty. Now I'm going to come over here to my dark browns, which I still have on my palette. I can mix more blues into it. If I wanted to get some variety of the darks in here, I could certainly put more blue into some of this. And I'm going to be adding in pretty strong color here for, I guess that's not fully dry, but I don't want to put my arm in wet color, so I'm just going to dry this side a little bit more because that's where I'm putting my arm. All right, so in through here, I'm just looking dark right now. Like I'm not trying to paint too much specific stuff, but there's like branches and go through there and just kind of abstract shapes, basically. It's the idea is just to get some darks in there. Gets hard to see what's in there, but I am skipping over, any of the greenery that I want to have a little bit lighter, that type of thing. Leaving some of the things lighter, but mostly there's just a lot of dark through here. Going to give these tree trunks a little bit of shading as well. There's just a lot of stuff going on back in here. So I'm not going to think about it too much. Just I want to make sure it gets a lot of sort of little darks tucked in behind there. And then we have this little area here, which isn't entirely clear. There's some little saplings or branches of some kind here. But this area through here, it's mostly really dark. Couple of little spots where the river still shows through, but all in all, it's just a lot of dark stuff. Trying to come down as tidally as I can where the grass is. And there's a number of tree trunks coming through here. Not big trees, more like just little brush kind of things. I'm just going to do a little dry brushing in here just to darken some of that. And I think I'm getting pretty close to done. I think I will take a look over here. I feel like this green tree here in the background is feeling just a little bit to me like it's kind of flat. And when I'm looking at the reference, I'm seeing that it's actually got sort of branches hanging over and making a shadow underneath. Now you kind of have to, if you printed this out and you're looking at the reference, there's like a bench in front, but I can tell that there's some really dark green in behind that. So I'm going to come in underneath there. I can almost use the same color. I'll just put a little yellow in it. In fact, I could use a bit of neutral tint in it, and that would help get it dark, or even red mixed in would make it dark. So I'm going to come in at the base here and get some dark to flick up. I don't want to think about this too much, so I'm just going to flick upward. And even through here, I want to get this a little bit darker to really get the sense of, deep shadows. So I'm going to come in, of course I have to be consistent on the other side of the tree or it would look very strange. And I'm not filling it in completely. I'm just trying to make sure that there's some darker pockets back in there. I'll continue a little bit of that up into the tree here in a few places. Just a few, because I want it predominantly a lighter green as it's coming out into the light. But you can see that looks like it has a little bit more form now. Now, if I want to darken anywhere else, I think I'm going to take my tree trunk color. I actually just noticed that I put my original tree in kind of green here. So I'm going to take some of the burnt sienna and I'm going to come in where the tree trunk would be here, and I'm going to come down this part of the tree where the tree trunk would peek through. Now it's very dark. I'm not too concerned about the green being underneath, but I can skip over some of the greenery and paint this tree trunk nice and dark. I wanted to touch that tree up over there as well. So that's now nice and dark. All right, let's take a look. All right, I'm feeling like this has got some pretty good light now. The brighter, cleaner colors, more out of the tube kind of colors, are where the sun is actually hitting the trees, and where you have the shadows, you almost always have to dilute the color, not dilute the color, pardon me, dull the color a little bit and make it less diluted actually. So if I want to create the effect of even more light, I would stand back, take a look at the overall picture, and I would evaluate whether or not I actually need to make more areas darker. So if I take my red, let's take a little bit of that, a little bit more red. I'm glancing up at the camera here, up at my screen, and I think I'm going to dull down some of this tree a little bit more, so you really get the sense of the that brightness at the top. So for making something look like it's in sun, the colors are going to be more pure. Where it's in the shadow, the colors are going to be more dull. All right, just a little bit more of this, and I think that's going to finish this one up. But let's get the last few bits in here. Maybe I'll take off my tape today too. Give you the overall look without any ugly tape around it. So it feels, the more I darken these areas towards the bottom, you know, this sort of band of shadow here, the more I darken that, the brighter this feels. I often get people asking me, oh, how can I make it lighter? You know, this just doesn't look light enough, or something like that. And almost always the answer is just, you got to make something darker. So as I do this, I can see maybe I want to even darken a little bit on this tree, a bit more as well. And you can see as I build up, some of these darks get extra dark. It's one nice thing about working with transparent colors, that they just, you can layer things up and they get richer. They get darker, but they're also kind of a richer color. All right, so that's feeling like, okay, we're getting the light. It's really starting to happen on this tree now. And yet you can tell it's not just two colors. It's not just light color, dark color. By dabbling all of this in, I'm accomplishing the two things. I'm creating the shadow, and I'm creating the texture as well. Okay, so so I think that's really starting to come across now. And I'm going to put a little bit more of the quinacridone gold on my tree over here. Especially on this lower part of the tree. Oop, wrong color. Quinacridone gold. This is starting to look a little bit orange now, but as the leaves start to die off, some trees, they just turn quite brownish before they actually fall off the tree. So I'm feeling like that's giving me a little bit more feeling of light in other areas. So I'm going to come up sort of near the top here. I'm keeping most of these, you'll notice I did this on the red tree as well. I'm keeping a lot of the sort of shadow on these leaves more to the right. So the sun was actually a little bit on the left-hand side. So as I'm adding a little bit up here where the sunlight is, you know, where the way I put the dark shadow on the limbs that were coming up, the branches and stuff, these bright yellow areas are going to have a little bit more shading on the right hand side. You know, if they're kind of rounded like a ball, like the cluster of leaves is rounded like a ball, it's going to have a little bit more shading on the right hand side. So I'm trying to sort of envision where the clusters are, and then I'm adding in a bit more on the right hand side. All right, so hopefully, I mean, it's a tricky thing to accomplish the feeling of sunlight hitting something. And I think paying attention to the warmth of the color in the sun, especially late day, getting that warm feeling of the light, but getting the dark dullness of the shadows to compare with is kind of a big deal. All right, so let's take the tape off here. One of my favorite things, very gratifying to remove tape. We'll pull this off, get the grand finish here. Now I'm going to take a look at some of the questions. I might have some more questions because I didn't glance up at the screen in a bit. Like the big reveal when you take the tape off, gets rid of a lot of that ugliness. By the way, I'm using just regular old tape on mine, like the contractor's grade 2020, I think it is, Scotch brand tape, and I buy it at Home Depot. But it holds the edges of the paper down well. Stands up to, you know, when you get wet washes on there and that sort of thing. But there's my scene. Now I do feel like, these are feeling a little bit light as well. So I think just before I wrap up and come back and read the questions, I think this is popping off the page for me. I don't want the attention to be there. So I'm going to take some, maybe even a little bit of burnt sienna so that it dulls things down a little bit. And I'm going to come through here and dull this all down. Just make sure that there's no bright light. I don't want any bright light like I have up in the sun to come through this. So I'm just going to dull this down, and we'll see what a difference that can make in reading correctly. So if you've got bright things in your shadows, you may want to consider toning them down, but don't tone them down with gray. Gray is always kind of a sad, desperate way of getting a shadow. There we go. So I can put a little wash over that and get that dulled down without it looking like I've lost all the texture. So that's a lot of burnt sienna that I used in there. A little darker, a little duller than quinacridone gold. But I do have all the quinacridone gold and the yellows in there, and so it harmonizes very nicely with what I've got above. Okay, brushes down. Time to wrap this one up. Okay, so let me just come back, and I'm going to, well, I'll leave this on screen for the time being, but I'm going to take a look at all of the questions and comments if there are any. But I'd like to hear from you. I always like to hear from you. And don't forget, I have a critique session coming up in November. If you've joined late, go to my website, click on my email, and send me your reference picture and send me what it is you would like me to critique or help you with. All right, and that will work. So let me just take a look here, and I'll glance through the comments here. Lots of greetings here. All right. Beautiful. Looks like the pathway I go to walk my neighborhood in Ottawa. Well, this was very close to Ottawa, so it was actually in Arnprior, if you're curious. And spent a week there, or not a week. I spent 3 days there with one of my paint groups. The plan was to work plein air, but the rain had other ideas. And, oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for the demo. Lots of thank yous. Oh, thank you. Okay. Milunsa has a question. Should the water be darker than the sky? Yes, and it is actually darker than the sky, but only marginally. When it's a very dull day like this one was, this was post-rain, you can see from the reference picture, it's not really so much darker as it is duller. It's a little bit more gray than the sky. The sky has a little more blue in it. And so, but value-wise, they're pretty similar, but the sky has more blue in it. It typically would be a little bit darker, but less noticeable on this particular day. Could a little more green to the far right tree bring it forward more? I think I did that already. I'm not sure the timing of that question, but yes. Or no, you're asking that now. The far right tree, this one, I don't want to bring it forward. I wanted to push it back because it is in behind. I hope I'm interpreting that question correctly. And Jan says, thank you for the real-time demo. I'm really interested in depicting realistic foliage and landscapes. Yeah, so that is a lot of what I wanted to get across here, is the difference between painting every leaf and creating the illusion of the foliage, while at the same time paying attention to the brightness of the color, or the color intensity, the higher chroma, as they say. So the higher chroma, the brighter the color, versus the dulled down versions in the shadows. Now, I'm still going to come in and I'm going to add in, I'm going to take my smaller brush and I'm going to add in more branches. I don't think you need to see all of that, but I'll use a smaller brush for that. And for that, I will use something like this is what is this? A number 1. This is an old brush. It's a low Cornell, which They don't make anymore, but it's a longer bristled small brush where I can come in and do some of the smaller tiny branches to sort of make this feel a little bit more complete. But I'm pretty close to done. You can tell the sun is hitting the top of this tree for sure. But this red tree in particular, this yellow over here as well, that sort of thing. So all important things. Okay, so now this, let me just say, this looks a little funny here because there's no actual little leaves along the grass that have maybe blown with the wind. But I think they maybe just recently cut it or something because there really wasn't that much to see here. There's a few little speckles in there. If you felt like you needed to add those in, I could mix up some of this color, mix it with a bit of white, and dabble a few in there for a shadowy kind of leaves on the grass kind of thing. That would work fine. And sorry, I meant the green spots showing through on the yellow tree. Oh, these ones here. All right. Yeah. You could darken those if you felt like it needed to be pushed back a little bit more. But it depends on what is of the green trees that is being illuminated by the sun. And so if I came in and put a few more little darks in some of these areas, that would, I don't know, that's going to really push it back more, but it will, it should resemble the same coloring that you have in your, the tree that it's peeking through. But yes, if on your version these need to darkening, by all means go in and darken some of them. You don't have to just darken everything. You can have one lighter green and darker green because we've got all lighter and darker green here. Okay, so I think I've reached the end of the comments. So I'm going to just take some fluids and give my voice a rest. And next week, don't know yet what we're going to be doing. I guess it's going to be a surprise. And so remember, every Wednesday mornings at 10 o'clock Eastern time, that's Toronto time, I come online and I do a live, and I hope you'll join me. So take care, everybody. Have a wonderful week and see you later. Bye.